Clark and Jeannie.
We're back with Clark and Jeannie Baker. See what I mean about
You're new at this, aren't you?
I know. Yeah, well, we got to get some things. We have to confer with Noah about how we should do this. But anyway, welcome back, and it's a new day. I'm Red Palmer. You're listening to me on most likely on WCNO 89.9 on your FM dial, but you also got us on our podcast. And what's great thing about those podcasts are it's like a library, and then these interviews live forever there. I asked God a while back, I said, what really do I like as an older guy now? What do I really like? What makes me happy? You know what makes me happy? Hearing about conversions to Jesus, hearing about sinners that are saved, hearing about the interventions, whether it's miraculously for a healing or direction from a power greater than self. I think that's my greatest joy. So I love hearing these testimonies of people like the two of you. Now, the thing is that to give some encouragement to people out there, because, he says he sets the lonely into families. Now, you two were both single. You had never been married, Jeannie.
Never.
And she's a very pretty lady. Was in a movie and done other stuff in Hollywood. And so it's like God kept you aside till you were 68. So how did you two meet up? What's the circumstances?
We had mutual friends. I was retired LAPD, and in 2000 I retired. And
what does a cop that's retired do?
Well, that's a good question. So in 1966, I was 8 years old, and I was doing some homework, and I wrote down the date 6666, and I thought, wow, that's odd. 666. The next time that happens is 7770s. And I calculated in the next few months, when I was 9 years old, I calculated that in 7777, I would have 2 years in the Marine Corps. 8888, I'd have 8 years in the LAPD, and 9999, I'd be a year away from retirement. I knew that I wanted to be married. I wanted kids. I wanted to accomplish things, learn to be a pilot, a scuba diver, and I had all these objectives, but I had no vision after the age of 43 when I retired from the LAPD. And so I enjoyed retirement for about a month. And
you
then
retired at 43?
With a pension. And because I tell people when I joined the LAPD, I hoped, when I applied for the LAPD, I hoped that I would measure up to their standards. But politics and a lot of very dark forces changed the LAPD to where the organization no longer met my standards. So I had to leave early. And I retired at 43 with 20 years. And I was doing a bunch of odds and ends. I was a scuba diver. I was also a private investigator, doing work for friends and associates. And I was in a circle of conservatives in Los Angeles. And in Los Angeles, very few conservatives. So you all know each other. And so in our circle, we had Andrew Breitbart and it was the War Room and various other.
Steve Bannon.
Steve Bannon and Knowles and a whole bunch of people, and we all knew each other. Mm-hmm. And she was in that group as well. And
were you a private investigator?
No,
but in local politics in Los Angeles.
We ran in the same circles, and we had mutual friends.
Because when you think of a private investigator, you think of, here I was in L.A. Then you walked into my shop and laid down $500. I thought his wife was maybe fooling around. I didn't know what was going to happen next, but it was about to explode on the scene. I mean, because, come on.
Yeah. Well, I had set myself
Jack Nicholson.
I had pretty much set myself up like Humphrey Bogart's Marlowe, where I lived in a modest room. I owned nothing except my pension.
Why are always these investigators always living these very minimalistic lifestyles?
Because lawfare will destroy your life. If you have anything of value that includes a wife, kids, family,
Yeah.
friends, and you start uncovering things that are politically unpopular. In my case, I exposed problems with the PCR testing diagnostics before state and federal courts, and won a whole bunch of cases. So when you challenge a multi-billion-dollar industry, they will destroy your life. I went after organized crime, and they made my life hell. So you want to make yourself the smallest, most impervious target that you can, and even then, they will go after you.
Mhm.
So,
And they're right.
so that's what happens if you're uncovering things. You can expect bad things to happen, and you don't want.
Well, look what they did for
Friends-
Donald Trump.
That's exactly right, and they. Donald Trump is a miraculous. I won't go into the political side of it, but everything is politics. If you're talking
Well, the
about
hand of
food
God saved him
prices
from that
and-
bullet. There's no doubt about
No
it.
doubt.
The fact
yeah.
that he was elected the first time and he didn't win the second time, maybe he really did win, but the fact that he didn't get in,
That was
you
his
know, God's-
second term.
But it doesn't matter. He got away from it, and I said this. I said, you don't understand Trump. He was thrown into this. He's not a politician. He didn't know what he was doing. Now he's admitting this. He didn't know what he was doing the first 4 years. He's
Yeah.
learning on the job.
Yeah.
Now he had a time to sit out, and now he's coming back with all that knowledge. And so, and of course, we all know the finger of God stopped that bullet.
Yeah.
There was even a prophecy on national.
Yeah, I
national.
saw it. Me
Yeah,
too.
and this guy had it 3 weeks before Trump was shot. He said,
Mm-hmm.
"I've had a dream, and a bullet's going to go by Donald Trump's
His ear.
Yeah.
and he's going to fall to his knees. And the moment he falls to his knees, his life will be given over to Jesus."
Mm-hmm.
Well, he got up with that blood on him. He's going, "Fight, fight!" I mean, I got to tell you something. I'm the president, and I get shot, okay,
Mm-hmm.
or just a little shot like that. I'm going to go, "Hey, cover me up, guys! Get me to the limousine."
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do it. He stands up, breaks through their arms, and says, "Fight, fight, fight!"
Yeah.
I mean, even the guy, the left wing guy who owns Facebook,
Facebook.
he says, from that moment on, I was a fan because
Yeah.
we haven't seen that kind of valor
Yeah.
coming from someone in office.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about it is he's been very rough at times, like maybe like I think that he was hurt in his childhood, and so it's like with Donald Trump, he'll do anything. I know all kinds of stories you probably don't know that he's done. He's helped a lot of people, but if you throw a pebble at him, then he's going to let boulders fall down on
Yeah.
you.
I was listening to I think his name is David Sachs on talking about the politics in Israel and Palestine and Russia and Ukraine and so forth. And he said something that the world is full of bullies,
Oh, yeah.
and so if you want to protect your country, you have to be the biggest bully.
You know, you need to go and see. You can have this station, WCNO, and Jonathan here, the pastor who runs it, is inviting Kahn. You know, Kahn, the Jewish guy who's the preacher, writes all these top-selling books. Well, anyway, this guy is amazing. He's going to be coming back to Port St. Lucie in a couple of months.
KHAN.
C. Kahn. He's got #1 selling books in all the place. But anyway, he's a Jewish rabbi that believes in Jesus. You know, that's quite a remarkable story. You got to go see him. You'd love this guy.
Jews
But
for Jesus.
I mean, oh yeah. Well, it's not Jews for Jesus, but he is a Jew that believes in Jesus.
That's good.
It's messianic. So anyway, so I don't want to get off on politics here, but we can get off on the fact that yes, I think we've seen God actually begin to forge his character. Look, you know, this guy Trump was always outrageous. He was always outlandish, and he even predicted years ago that he would, you know, maybe run for office one day, and I would say seemingly arrogant.
Well, we don't confuse arrogance with being fearless. If he had the kind of experience that I
Maybe
had,
it was not arrogant. You're right.
people accuse me of being arrogant. But before he entered, he probably had a strong sense that he would lose hundreds of millions of dollars, if not $1 billion or more, and
By
that
running,
he
you
would,
mean?
by running and trying to grapple with this thing.
You want to know how easy he is with money, though? I know the guy that was with him the first election. And that night at 6 p.m., they said, blah, 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 this is going on. They talked to a news guy. He was going to lose. Somebody has to go up and tell him. So this guy went up and told him, said, Donald, he says, I hate to break the news, but it looks like you're going to blah, 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 you're going to lose. He goes, well, that was a waste of a lot of time and money. That's all he said. That was a waste of a lot of time and money. He just moves forward. But anyway, by 11 o'clock that night, the guy went up and said, we were wrong, you're winning, and you're going to be the next president of the United States of America. And that was his first run, you know. So,
But he did win in 2020. I'm convinced the evidence of voter election fraud and it's,
but this
it's overwhelming.
Paul said we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities of light and darkness. And, you know, this is why I'm so pro-life. It's because God clearly says, he says, if you see evil and do nothing, the blood will be on your hands.
Sure.
But if you see evil and attempt to correct it, though you fail, the blood will not be on your hands.
Right, right. Now look at Daniel Penny. He risked his life, laid down his life for another.
What's the story? What is this? Is that the guy in the subway?
This was the Marine in the subway who was criminally charged. I had a number of similar experiences right after Rodney King. I'd been on the LAPD for 11 years in 1991. And right after Rodney King, I knew all the guys involved in that arrest. And I got a copy of the video and I ran it real slow. And I saw, I watched every single strike. Because when I first saw it, I thought, wow, you can stop now. Wow, you can stop now. It even disturbed me a little bit. And I had been in violent arrests in my past. But when I slowed it down, it became clear that every single baton strike and kick was within department policy. And if you apply department policy, if these officers are following policy, you can't just prosecute them. If you're going to prosecute them, you've got to prosecute the policymakers, who include the mayor and the Civilian Police Commission. And I wrote an op-ed 2 weeks later, and my then wife said, hey, you sure you want to write this thing? You know, you're putting your name on it. I said, yeah, I got to. And it appeared 2 weeks afterward in the LA Daily News. It was the lead opinion piece. And within about a month, I was accused of beating up a guy. Had no marks on his body. And I was, after it's a long story, but by 1992, I was criminally charged. 1993, I was convicted, sentenced. I was fired from the LAPD in Christmas Eve, 1993. And I mean, if you're paying for dance lessons and a mortgage and car payments, and you're a convicted ex-cop, racist, and your name and picture are on the LA Times, it's really hard to get a job.
Yeah, well, you know, Jesus was betrayed too, and so you learn from going through these things.
But I had a great guy who, actually it was Charlton Heston, who called me after my conviction. He lived
Moses.
Not far, yeah. He called me up.
What do you want, Moses?
Officer Baker, this is Charlton Heston. And I've heard about your case, did some asking, I asked a few questions, and we determined that you were screwed, which is great. Hearing Moses say the word screwed was, but that's what he said. And so he said, I've instructed my attorneys at Gibson, Dunn, Crutcher to give you any assistance that you may need. And I won my appeal against the conviction. It was overturned. The judge and prosecutors were found guilty of misconduct, and my attorney for ineffective counsel. And I got my job back and back pay, etc. But I went through that, and had I not had the faith that I had, things might have been a lot
But not
worse.
so strange. We all go through these fiery trials.
Yeah.
You might think it's just you. It goes through. It happens to everybody,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, it was just me then, so.